Is Putin panicking over the high casualties in Vovchansk? And is he even trying to deflect responsibility? Plus, is Ukraine really being forced out of Chasiv Yar? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so this is a really interesting story, I thought. And this is, you could see that the Russian FSB officers have reportedly detained the commander of the Russian 183rd Guards VDV Brigade on fraud charges. Now, you guys know that in the Russian military and in the political apparatus, fraud is just the table stakes. Almost everyone is expected in the Russian government to supplement their income using fraud, deception. In the case of the Russian military, a lot of times, even in the initial invasion, you might recall that everybody from basically low-level sergeants were selling fuel all the way up to high officers like colonels were selling high-level military gear. So finding an officer who's committed fraud in the Russian military is like finding an officer with a uniform. It's pretty much endemic. But when you do see someone arrested for fraud, there's usually an actual message, we're going to say, behind it, right? And in this case, it seems likely that this is because his brigade suffered eye-watering losses in Kharkiv in the last month, right? And the fact that it was FSB military counterintelligence officers that did the detaining tells you that this guy wasn't out there, selling shitty Russian optics on eBay, right? This is some serious business. And the Russian media said, of course, Gorodilov denied the charge and said he's going to seek acquittal, right? But he's stuck in pretrial detention. And again, in somewhere like Russia, when the FSB makes an arrest, the reality is a foregone conclusion. As ISW points out, Russian President Vladimir Putin and the Russian military command may be punishing Gorodilov for what Putin perceives as gross incompetence that failed to achieve its military objectives while causing the deaths of a significant number of, quote, elite, unquote, Russian service members in Kharkiv. I think this is actually missing a little bit of burying the lead a little bit, right? Because one of the things is that it's been very, very public that Russian losses in Kharkiv have been huge, right? One NATO source described the losses as astronomical. And that makes sense because from interviews with Ukrainian troops fighting in Kharkiv, they acknowledged that Russia initially tried to roll out mechanized vehicles and armored support, but Ukrainian drones just tore them to pieces because initially the attack was ordered before those vehicles had drone jamming technology, right? They hadn't gotten their jammers installed yet. And it seemed like in the rush to deploy those troops to start that offensive, there was real issues, real logistical issues that hadn't yet been solved. So those vehicles got wiped out almost immediately, meaning that all Russia had left to fight that fight was light infantry troops. And so we've seen in Vovchansk, small groups of Russian infantry just sort of, sometimes it seems like wandering aimlessly towards Ukrainian lines, getting just torn to pieces by drones, quite literally. If you're a member of Combat Vet News, you know we've been watching this on the members-only section for weeks. It's almost tedious to see these drones just butcher these hopeless Russians. And here's the thing. If we see it, right, in the Western media, yeah, Russia doesn't have the same open media, but they still have Telegram, and these videos do get out. Rumors do get out. The soldiers know. We've seen many of the videos from soldiers in Vovchansk, right? We covered it on this channel. The soldier goes, listen, we're just being wounded. If we're able to walk, we're basically sent back into the fight. And so a lot of these soldiers also know casualties are really, really high. Well, what does that mean, right? When it becomes so high casualty that it becomes a political liability for someone like Putin, how do you solve it? Well, you have to be seen as doing something. And for Putin, I think this commander did exactly what Putin told him to do. But Putin says, listen, someone has to be the sacrificial lamb so that I and my buddies at the Kremlin don't get held accountable for this policy. So what we're going to do is we're going to charge you with fraud, and we're going to give you a slap on the wrist, and we're going to remove you from command. And that way, these soldiers who are being sent on these, what we'll generously call one-way missions, these soldiers are going to be able to say, look, we knew it wasn't supposed to be this high casualty mission. It was this particular commander who did it. He's responsible, and now Putin has gotten rid of him, and the casualty rates are going to drop again. They may indeed drop, right? But only because Russia appears to be abandoning its offensive ambitions in the region, not because there's a fundamental shift in the tactics that the Russian military is using. So hopefully you see that this guy, again, while Russia's not a free country, they're still subject to politics and politicking and perception. And if there's one thing we know about politics wherever you are, it's that when somebody screws up, they always have a subordinate take the fall so that the big man, the true power broker, doesn't get held accountable. Anyway, guys, before we talk about the Chasiv Yar thing, let's talk about the 4th of July sale, baby. Strike Gum is out here, and we are spreading freedom across the globe, freedom from being undercaffeinated. Our 4th of July sale is 20% off everything, period, worldwide. So if you are from Europe or Australia, and you've been waiting for a chance to get Strike Gum, all orders over $25, get 20% off, automatically applied at checkout, which is perfect because we just rolled out the 5-pack. So if you're looking for the 5-pack, you want to pick some up. But let's be honest. If we're going to ship this thing to you worldwide, efficiency, simple unit economics dictates that you should get the tray, right? That's the equivalent of 75 energy drinks in here. If you're looking for a way to power through the fatigue that comes from summer, I know you Europeans are all going to be on vacation in August, but you don't just want to sleep through your own vacation. That's no fun. So pick up some Strike Gum. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon, but if you want the discount, you got to go to strikegum.com, right? This is the time to do it. Again, there's no promo code. It just happens when you check out, right? So thank you. You're welcome as an American. We're out here spreading freedom with the best zero sugar energy drink alternative. Okay, so here's the thing. Russia isn't the only one who's having a tough time with things. Right? Ukrainian forces recently had to withdraw from a portion of the town of Chasiv Yar. And we saw this in the deep state map here over the last couple of days. Right? We'll just zoom it in here real quick. Chasiv Yar, as you guys know, is due west of Bakhmut. And you can see that over the last maybe 24 hours, right, Ukrainian forces have withdrawn from this district here in the eastern portion of the town. Right now, this just kind of makes sense. You can see there's a canal here forming a natural water obstacle, which does make defending easier. And this is kind of the nuances of military operations. Now you can see, what does Ukraine's partial Chasiv Yar withdrawal actually mean, right? And this is from the Kiev Independent, which is very pro-Ukrainian, so take it with a grain of salt. Right. But the Ukrainian armed forces said, quote, it became impractical to hold the canal neighborhood. Again, likely the neighborhood over the canal. Creative naming. Became impractical to hold the canal neighborhood after the Russians entered it because it threatened the lives and health of our servicemen, and the positions of our defenders were destroyed. So, again, yeah, they chose not to fight to the last man. But like, if Russia has destroyed all your defensive positions, then you've been forced out, right? Like that's what losing a battle is. If you don't have any defensive positions left, that can stop the enemy's advance, then the enemy has defeated you. Which is, again, this isn't like news, right? We know this is how Russia's been operating. Through sheer mass, they can push the Ukrainians out of many, many different areas, right? They've said the canal neighborhood has been obliterated. Here's let's see if we can pull this up here. Oh God, it's X. Ugh. Okay. All right. Never mind. I cannot stand X's interface. It drives me absolutely ballistic. But as you can see, you could kind of see the remnants of what used to be the neighborhood, but now it's just a pile of rubble. And you can also see that I think this is, on one hand, part of the Ukrainian strategy to not dig in and go toe-to-toe with the Russians unnecessarily. I think they're going to wait until they get their new brigades and new equipment. But again, to say that it's a voluntary withdrawal to better defensive lines is like correct, but misses kind of the core point. And this is just something to be aware of in war, right? I call out Russian propaganda all the time, and Ukrainian propaganda also tends to be a little more subtle. Western messaging tends to be a little more spin doctory, whereas Russians will just straight up lie through their teeth. But again, is this like the big end of Chasiv Yar? No, not right now, but it is a troubling turn of events, given that, as we know, Russia really has a pretty uncanny ability to, once they sort of dig their teeth into any forest or urban area, they have the ability to advance into it like a just like a virus, just creeping through anywhere like this. Ukraine tends to thrive in the fight during when Russia's forced across open ground. We know this, right? We can see that when there's Russian forces have to charge across open ground, it's a way worse situation for them. Anyway, guys, that is all I had. A huge thank you to the Colonel tier members at combatvetnews.com, including, let's see, where were we last time? Bill Collier, Judith Haynes, Jeff Long, St. John's Kid, Randall Lai, Alan Weber, and Rico Garcia. And thanks to, yep, I got you, the Colonel tier members. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, right? It does tell the YouTube algorithm that I make good content, and it doesn't cost you anything. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks. Cheers.